start us off. Kick us off with a little bit of introductions, and some more folks can filter in as we progress. Hi, thank you guys so much for coming out to our Clean Cars Q&A. My name is Elle. I am the Central Virginia organizer with the Chesapeake Climate Action Network. I use she, her pronouns, and this is a collaborative event brought to you with Gen 180. Giving some more quick introductions. My coworker Lauren, who is our Hampton Roads organizer, the two of us will be facilitating this conversation for you tonight. We have Stacy, who is our tech guru, and will be fielding all of your lovely questions. Just a quick couple of housekeeping rules and things of that nature. You are recorded right now. We will be recording this. So if you would like to not be recorded, feel free to make your face go away, and we will not begrudge you. But for the sake of the event, we'll ask you to stay on mute unless we're asking on you to call on or expand upon a question that you are shooting to us. As we go through, we're gonna have like a lovely presentation fielding all of your questions about electric vehicles in like very base layman's terms to give us that deep understanding. And then we have, you can field your questions in the chat as they come up, and then at the end there'll be dedicated time to address all of them. And I'm going to give you a brief introduction to our panelists before we start off and dive into some fun interactive polls. So we have the lovely Ms. Blair Ledger-Olson, who is joining us today. She's a program manager over at Gen 180 and leads their Electrify My Ride campaign. And then for those of y'all that are familiar with CCAN, we have Ms. Jemaine, who is our policy director here. And with that, we're gonna start. We're gonna go deep in. So Lauren, do you wanna kick us off with some questions?
Yes, hello, welcome everybody. So happy to have y'all. Just to do a little bit of an icebreaker and to get a good sense of who we have in the audience, we're going to efficiently move through about 5 polls. I want to make sure that we leave the bulk of our time for our great panelists and all of your wonderful questions. So we're just going to pop through some polls really quickly. They're going to appear on your screen, and then I'll broadcast the results so that we can all see kind of who we're meeting with and who we're talking to. So poll number 1, launching now. Do you drive a zero or low emission vehicle? Giving it just a couple more seconds.
I wish we could respond to these too. You guys are lucky. You guys get to respond to them. The rest of us have to just watch.
All right, we have 18 out of 19, 18 out of 20. All right, we're gonna go ahead and close it right there and show those results. So give me a thumbs up if you're seeing the results on your screen. Great, love it. So as you can see, 44% of us drive internal combustion engine vehicle or an ICE vehicle. And we got a great showing of people who have either a zero emission vehicle, which we can say for short ZEV, or a low emission vehicle, is shortened as LEV. So that's great, thank you so much. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the second one. All right. If you answered one of the yeses in poll number 1, where did you purchase your vehicle? Virginia, Maryland, or other? Y'all are fast answers. I appreciate that about you. A couple more seconds. 13 out of 20. Get those votes in.
I think that's all of our EV or hybrid owners who answered yes.
All right, so it looks like we have 69% in Virginia, 15% in Maryland, 2 people in Maryland, and 2 people other. Awesome. Okay, great. Poll number 3. So this is where we get people involved who aren't a ZEV or LEV owner. Do you know someone who drives a zero or low emission vehicle? Everybody answered this question, whether you own one or whether you don't. This is a beautiful snapshot. Share results. 89% of us, 17 of us, do know somebody, which is awesome. That is very encouraging. 2 more to go. Okay, number 4. If you would like to buy a zero or low emission vehicle, what obstacles do you face? And this is multiple choice. You can choose as many as apply to you. I know for me, definitely number 1, I already have a paid off vehicle, which is a nice problem to have, of course. And obviously, spoiler alert, we're going to see if we can address some of these obstacles, some of these concerns throughout this evening. 15 out of 20. I'm hoping nobody wouldn't like to buy one, but I guess if you wouldn't like to buy one, you can skip answering or you can hit other. All right, we've got 18 out of 20 answering. I'm going to go ahead. And is looking like 33% of us already own a paid off ICE vehicle, 44% are concerned about cost, 39% concerned about mileage, and 50% are concerned about EV charging infrastructure, with 17% of other. Feel free, if you did other, pop an answer in the chat. Let us know what that other was. And that is great. All right, last one. And hopefully we're going to address some of those concerns. Number 5, a fun one. Would you like to purchase an electric-powered micromobility vehicle, like a scooter? Maybe your other is, I wouldn't like to purchase an EV vehicle. I would like to purchase a micromobility vehicle. Shout out to Elle, who loves her some micromobility vehicles. All right. Hate to break it to those of you that answered yes. Your friends and neighbors are looking for a little bit larger vehicles for their lifestyle, which is perfectly fine over a scooter. Okay, great. Thank you so much. So hopefully that was fun for y'all, and was a good good capture of who we have here on the call, and we can kind of address some of those different things. So now I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our panelists. I'm going to do a quick screen share in a moment for some slides that we've got, and they're going to start giving us some great information. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do.
Zoom, it's the most fun.
There we go. Take it away.
Hello, everyone. As Elle mentioned, my name is Jemaine, and I'm the Virginia Director for CCAN. And we really want to thank Generation 180 for helping us not only with the material, but also for joining us today. Blair and I have done a lot of events together over the last few weeks, so getting to know each other really well. So thank you. And thanks to you all for joining us. Now that we've gotten limber with those polls, we'll get started by just addressing offhand some common misconceptions we've heard related to electric vehicles. Later on in the evening, we'll have questions that have been pre-submitted for us to answer, and then we'll also give you an opportunity to ask questions right here. But to start it off, we're going to just address some common misconceptions. Lauren, we can go to the next slide. So this is a big one. Many people are surprised to learn that transportation is the leading source of carbon dioxide emissions in our state, which means it's one of our biggest opportunities for impact. We know that transportation emissions like carbon dioxide and fine particulate matter have negative impacts on our health and our children's health. But Virginia also spends $33 million every single day on imported gasoline. So we have the potential to not only reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but also save huge sums of money. And the reality is that these emissions also have an environmental justice impact. Communities of color and low-income communities face the burden of these emissions. So we have a really unique opportunity to address issues on multiple fronts by addressing emissions from our transportation sector. So here is what I call our carbon emissions donut. I have put this information in a number of visuals, including a pie chart, and thought I would get creative here. So transportation is the largest source of emissions, coming in at a whopping 48%. All right.
Okay, now quickly, got to make sure you stay engaged, and we also want to see how much you can brush up. Quick pop quiz. How many do you think before Kim gives you the answer?
There are definitely some of you on this call who should know this answer. I'm looking at you, Charles.
All right, that's a good snapshot. 53%, 37 people said 53%, and y'all are correct. Okay, let me bounce back over.
Yeah, so I'm going to guess that some of you all have been at a lot of these events with us in the past, or maybe you're just super knowledgeable about electric vehicles. So Generation 180 recently released the Virginia Drives Electric report, which includes the key findings you see sampled here. In summary, the report shows that there is a significant demand for electric vehicles in the Commonwealth, which includes that 53% of Virginians who are somewhat likely or very likely to consider electric vehicles for their next vehicle. And roughly 71% of respondents strongly support Virginia offering an EV incentive. So we know that the demand is there, but there are barriers holding up our transition to electric transportation. Okay. So we get a lot of questions about the options related to electric vehicles. And the reality is that there are over 42 models available right now, and 10 more at least coming in 2021. Major manufacturers have all announced their goals for fully electric fleets. Electric cars aren't just the future of the automotive industry, they are here right now. Here in Virginia, you may not see that broad array of electric vehicles, and we'll tell you why throughout this program. So, another thing we hear really often about electric vehicles are that they aren't affordable, but that's not necessarily the case. The average out-the-door cost of a new car in the United States is $39,000, and there are 20 electric car models that are at or below that amount, and that's before any tax credits or discount. So right now there is a federal incentive of $7,500, and we are going to be working here in Virginia to make sure that in the coming years we can offer incentives that further reduce the cost of electric vehicles.
Okay, and then we're going to do 2 back-to-back polls, which I'm very excited about because these are my favorite stats that will address a lot of the questions that y'all had. So here we go. The first one coming at you right now. How many miles a day do you think the average US driver travels? Okay, now remember your answer. And then the next one, 10 plus all electric cars have ranges over how many miles? Again, we saw a lot of y'all were concerned about charging infrastructure. Okay.
I'm impressed. I'm going to reach out to some of the folks that we have joining us and ask them to lead some of these panels next time we have them. Have a knowledgeable group. So I do have a 29 miles number here, and the number was 31. So I am going to say that this slide deck was updated from about a year ago. So that discrepancy is just in terms of timing, not a huge error. So there are big myths out there designed to keep you out of an electric vehicle. But the biggest is range anxiety. The average American drives around 30 miles a day, which is well under the average range of all electric vehicle. An EV can be your perfect daily driver. So you all were correct. 10 plus model electric cars have ranges of over 200 miles. So you can take all the trips you want. Next slide. And there is a dog in here playing with his toy. So that is the noise that you're hearing in the background. Another question we often hear is, where am I going to charge? The answer is at home. 80% of EV charging happens at home overnight. Just like charging your cell phone, it becomes part of your evening routine. But for those of us who may not have a garage or easy access to a charging source at home, charging can happen at your workplace or on the go. There are currently 1,400 public charging outlets in Virginia, with significant growth slated for over the next 3 years. Virginia has partnered with EVgo, a charging infrastructure company based out of California, to expand Virginia's EV charging network. And when the project is completed, 95% of Virginians will be within 30 minutes of a fast charger. So I know when we got started, a lot of folks expressed concerns about range and charging. So hopefully this eases some of that anxiety. So here is just an outline of how you can charge. Fast charging stations are not your only option. We all have access to level 1 charging in our own homes right now. Just plug it into any basic outlet, the same one you use to charge your phone. It will take longer, but it is an option. Level 1 charging can be a bit slow, however, which is why level 2 charging is recommended for your home. This level uses the same 240 volt plug as your oven or washing machine. An electrician can easily install one of these plugs and a corresponding level 2 charger in your garage or parking access. When we're charging on the go, however, we want the quickest chargers possible. That's where fast chargers come in. Fast chargers convert electricity to a more efficient form for charging and deliver power directly to your car's battery. So you don't always need a special charger for your electric vehicle. And we are obviously going to continue the program answering any questions you have pre-submitted and ones you have right now. But if you're interested in getting involved, here are some ways. I will let you look over this and we will drop some links in the chat box later on tonight. Thank you.
Awesome job, Kim. And awesome job to all of our attendees today. Y'all are on it. I am impressed.
Thank you so much, Kim. That was great information. So now I haven't been able to look at the chat because I was presenting, so I'm pretty sure I saw some notifications going off, and we've got some great questions piling up in there. So I'm going to turn it over to Stacy and let her cycle through them and get some answers for y'all from Blair and Kim.
Great. So I've been looking at the chat, collecting some questions. If you have other questions, please put them in the chat. One question I see, Kim or Blair, can you handle this? The question is, many federal incentives are exhausted for some car makers. Will this be renewed?
Yeah, and Charles put a great response in the chat after that, and he's absolutely right. Some of the automakers' credits are phased out. That's pretty much just Nissan, Chevy, and Tesla. So there are so many other EVs that are still eligible for the full tax credit. There's kind of a misnomer that when that federal tax credit didn't get renewed by the current administration most recently, that meant it was dead and dying. But that's not what it means. It means that, you know, Nissan, Chevy, and Tesla wanted them to renew it for more than 200,000 units because they've already sold that many. And the current administration said, no, all of these other OEMs, these other auto manufacturers still qualify for the full tax credit. So we're going to let those people run their course before we determine whether or not we renew it. Granted, with the current or with the upcoming administration, that may change. There may be a new effort. I believe there is a federal bill being considered to yet again address that. But if you're looking at a Kia or a Hyundai or a BMW, there are still, or a Mercedes, like there are still so many tax credits out there. And if some of us on this call do our jobs well enough in the coming years, there'll also be a state level incentive as well.
Great, thank you. I have another question here. The question is, Dominion Energy is rolling out a rate structure incentive plan so that I will get a cheaper rate when charging my EV during certain hours, but it requires a smart meter. What is a smart meter and how do I know if I have one or how do I get one? Blair, could you answer this one?
Yeah, if you don't think you have a smart meter, the odds are you probably don't. But they are not complicated, scary things. It's just a slightly different model than your standard level 2 plug into the wall kind of charging mechanism. I don't know if folks have noticed lately, but about, I'd say 6 months ago, the iPhone had an update where now your phone doesn't start immediately charging. When I plug my phone in at night, I get this alert that pops up that says like my phone will be charged by 5 a.m. because my phone knows that that's when I have my alarm set. So it structures itself to charge in the most efficient manner instead of just charging up right then and there and then sitting on full for hours on end, which for all of us who don't do this but have been told to, you know, you're supposed to let your battery drain down. You're not supposed to leave it plugged in all the time. Those things apply to your car too. And so a smart charger essentially takes that responsibility off your plate. You don't have to worry about it. The charger worries about it. And the reason the charger can address that is because it's actively tapped into a data network with your utility, for Dominion for this instance. So that charger is being told when electricity is at its lowest cost, which is generally between 12 a.m. and 5 a.m. So it's going to start charging your car around then. And that's to Dominion's benefit. It takes advantage of off-peak grid power. I don't know if folks know, but utilities actually do have to keep a constant flow of electricity for emergencies, essentially, throughout the entire evening. Even though they know it's not going to be used, it's going to be wasted. And so what electric vehicles actually represent is an opportunity to reduce that waste. And besides it being a monetary gain for utilities, it is a grid stabilization aspect as well.
Thank you. Okay, next question is, it seems that auto manufacturers offer more EV options in other countries. Perhaps that may be because of market demands that makes it more lucrative to offer EVs abroad. What can we do to persuade vehicle manufacturers to offer more of their models in the US? And how can we create market conditions to favor EVs here? That's a great question. Kim, can you take that one?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. And the answer is layered. But the first thing I will say is that this is not a matter of low demand. As I mentioned earlier, Generation 180 released a report which indicated that 53% of Virginians would consider an electric vehicle for their next vehicle, and 71% have a favorable view of electric vehicles. I think the reality is that this is a market failure. In the United States, manufacturers prioritize sending electric vehicles to states that have adopted clean car standards. That means states like Virginia that have not adopted these standards are being left behind. One simple fix is to adopt ZEV and LEV standards, which apply to manufacturers, and task them with sending a certain percentage of electric vehicles to the Commonwealth. This means that Virginians will have access to a wider array of electric vehicle options. They won't have to travel out of state to go car shopping, and it will broaden the used electric vehicle market for those that may not be able to afford an electric vehicle right off the lot. The second approach is to remove barriers for consumers. We can provide rebate or other incentives to ensure that more Virginians can afford electric vehicles. And we can also invest in charging infrastructure so people feel secure in the knowledge that their electric vehicles will be adequately powered. So it's not a matter of demand. The demand is there. We just have to set the mechanisms in place.
Thank you. I see someone in the chat wants to make a comment. Let's just get through our submitted questions first, and then we'll open it up to allow you to take yourself off of mute in just a few minutes. Okay, so I'm just checking through the rest of the questions that you all submitted ahead of time. One more is, where can I buy an EV in Southwest Virginia, specifically Roanoke? And part 2 of that is, what electrical infrastructure will I need to install in my home for a typical EV charging station? And then lastly, this person asked, this is a 3-part question. Why is the resale value on EVs so low? For example, a 3 to 5 year old low mileage Nissan Leaf lists at only 11K. Who can take that question? Perhaps Kim.
Kim, you want it?
Yeah, I can answer, and then Blair, if I'm missing anything, you can absolutely take care of it.
Go for it.
Like I said earlier, many Virginians are unable to find electric vehicles because manufacturers simply are not sending them here to Virginia. We have to change that by adopting clean car standards. A quick search will show you a Hyundai and Chevy dealer in Roanoke with a few hybrid options and a couple of EV options. But we want to make sure that folks throughout the Commonwealth have access to a wide array of electric vehicle models. We address the second portion of this question in the slide deck, but the short answer is that you can charge an electric vehicle using a standard outlet. You can also purchase and install or have a charger installed. Those start at around $200. So that is an option for those folks who have allocated parking spaces or who have a garage. The answer related to the resale cost of electric vehicles is a little complicated. It's not the case across the board, but it is the case for some vehicles. Because of rapidly changing battery technology, some older EVs have a lower resale value, but this is way less true for newer electric vehicle models.
It's also way more true for Nissan specifically, because Nissan has changed their battery technology considerably back and forth over the past decade. So if you're looking at Nissans that are in particular like pre-2018, pre-2017, which is when they had a big change in battery technology, those are going to be lower priced. That's not the case across all OEMs or all manufacturers, and it's definitely not nearly the same for newer models. In fact, Teslas in particular hold their resale value incredibly well. So yes, you can totally scoop up an old Nissan. Very easy to scoop up as well, what we call orphan brands. So for instance, the Fiat that they're not making anymore, or the EV Golf that they're not making anymore, or not EV Golf, e-Golf. There are pluses and minuses to buy, or a Volt, that buying a car that's not being made anymore. Maintenance, for instance, it can be harder to come by, but you can get them at a steal. So. Ooh, what was the other part of that question? Roanoke. We have a ton of EV owners in Roanoke, so it's hard, and I sympathize with that. I know the BMW dealership, for instance, is very pro EV there. If that is potentially a brand that you want to consider, I'd also recommend, options like Carvana, for instance, or CarMax, looking at manufacturers or used options that will deliver straight to your driveway. But until we pass some more EV friendly policies in Virginia, driving to Northern Virginia or Maryland, or even Charlottesville is the unfortunate reality right now.
Great, thank you. Okay, other questions that we have. Someone asked a follow-up question about the smart meter. So I just want to make sure everyone's clear on that. So the question is, off-peak plan requires a smart meter. Do I have to buy that, or does Dominion install it?
Hey, Charles, you know this better than I do. He's responding in the chat. I don't know if Charles can unmute himself at this juncture, but Dominion is helping people install them in this first wave. And once they hit that wave, that might change. Charles, do you have any follow-up?
I just checked the website and put that in the chat. But yeah, they're in the process actually of installing meters in Richmond and one other service area. And so yeah, they're doing it in phases. And every time they do a wave of a certain set, then they have to go back, I think, to the Safe Corporation Commission and get the permission for the next wave, because it costs. There's a cost associated with that. And but yeah, it's in process. So if your area is going to get one, you'll get a card in the mail that says, "Hey, we're going around and installing smart meters." So it's not like you can call them and request one, unfortunately.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to other submissions. This one that I have here: how can personal EVs lead to electrifying for public good, i.e. electrifying the public transit fleet? Great question. Who wants to take that one, Kim or Blair?
Kim, do you want me to go? Okay, so there's a lot of ways that EVs fit into the broader transportation electrification picture. In terms of the types of vehicles that we're talking about right now, which is light duty vehicles, there are policies and incentives in place and great organizations like the Clean Cities Coalition across the country and our state, we have a few, who help municipalities and businesses electrify their fleet. So that's sort of the next organic step, using the vehicles that we're talking about right now. The most recent Nissan Leafs are the most ideal candidate for that work because they are vehicle to grid enabled. And so they help with resiliency. They help mitigate costs for those companies because they can store battery and then draw down on them. Really, it's a very cost-effective argument, which is why, combined with the lower cost of maintenance, you see so many cities going electric with their fleet. Roanoke is actually a great example of them. They were one of the first in the city or in the state other than Norfolk. So small light duty fleets, really easy to electrify. This technology directly supports that. Where we start looking broader at fleets, just going off of that one word for the question, we start looking at buses. We start looking at trains. Trains, I think, are a little farther off, but there are a lot of hopeful breakthroughs coming out just actually this past week. So I think they're getting there. Buses are here. We just need to help push for them more. The technology is here. It becomes similar to an EV, a cost question. Can you afford the upfront cost of an electric bus and then reap the significant rewards of the savings over time? And so some of the work that Kim and I do is to help more areas understand, more schools, more transit authorities understand that if you look at the long term, going electric with your fleet makes insanely good economic sense. And then there are other things that we can do, like policy levers that help create better financing mechanisms, that create more access. Right now, we do have, I believe it is around 5,000 advanced transportation jobs in the state. But Volvo Trucking has always sort of loved Virginia, and Volvo Trucking is bringing their electric truck manufacturing to Virginia. So we're seeing the effects of these policies showcase Virginia as a hub for innovation, which creates more jobs. So we're going to see more of not just light duty vehicles, but a comprehensive approach to transportation electrification taking place.
Thank you. Okay, next question from the chat is, can someone speak to the total battery life with fast charge versus slow charge? Will a slow charge battery last longer than a fast charge battery?
Yes. Same with your iPhone. Like if you're constantly leaving that sucker plugged in, it impacts your battery life. It's negligible, you won't notice it that much, but it is better to not constantly be fast charging. But unless you install a fast charger in your home or you drive 500 miles a day, and so you have to fast charge every single day, you really don't have to worry about it. The beauty of an electric vehicle is not having to worry about this stuff. We don't worry about that with your gasoline car. You don't have to worry about it with your ICE car, or your EV car. It's just that this is new technology. And so change is scary. And so, it's helpful to ask these questions, but I promise, like, owning an EV gets rid of all of that anxiety. Owning an EV cures range anxiety. It cures any really concerns. The only thing you have to figure out is either how comfortable are you with refilling the window washer fluid? If you're comfortable with that, then you're good, you're set, there's nothing. If you're not, then you can still drive to your maintenance shop and have them do it for you. But that's about it. That and changing your windshield wipers. That's really it.
Thank you. Okay, our next question is, how can EV vehicles help or impact rural communities?
Kim, you want this one?
Yeah, so I think the big answer here is that somebody asked the question about how does electrifying our personal vehicles support a transition to electrified fleets. And this answer kind of ties into that. School buses are a perfect example. These are vehicles that are used in the morning, and then they're used in the at the end of the day to pick kids up. That means that we have the perfect opportunity to charge them. So, and there is technology moving forward that will allow us to utilize them as battery storage as well. So that's a way that if we invest in the infrastructure needed for electric vehicles and electric fleets, the entire Commonwealth will benefit, and our most vulnerable populations, including our children, will benefit if we start to see electric vehicles, electric transportation, and electric fleets as the way of the future.
And I just add to that, there's recent data that came out, actually Charles is the one who sent me this study, talking about how there is actually increased transportation emissions in rural communities because these are the same communities who are in general driving farther, as well as driving less efficient vehicles, driving older vehicles, lots and lots of pickup trucks. And so you're actually having a higher density of poor air quality transportation emissions in these rural communities. And so they actually could really benefit from transportation electrification. We do have to do things to make that a more feasible transition for them, making sure we don't have charging deserts in rural communities, making sure that we prioritize incentivizing vehicles with longer ranges. But we are on a tipping point, and how quickly we get to the other side of that really depends on how quickly we push for it.
Thank you. Next question is, do you know if there are recycling centers for EV batteries in the US?
I don't know if there are recycling centers specifically for EV batteries in the US. I can say that we have plenty of manufacturing sites, businesses that are currently being powered by old EV batteries in the US. For instance, Amazon's data centers are backed up with EV batteries. The Mall of America's escalators are run on old EV batteries. When an EV battery is done in the vehicle, it still has 70% capacity left. So they're used across the entire world, and I truly do mean the entire world. I can prattle off an example in every continent. For escalators, data storage, hospitals use them as more efficient generator systems. So there's a huge second life market there. Even before we talk about recycling of the battery, we talk about repurposing the battery. But yes, there is a big market for recycling, but I think focusing on the repurposing is more effective, because we should get every last ounce of that battery that we can before we even think about how we recycle it.
Thank you. We have a couple questions left. Next one is, how can we make sure that EV access is equitable in terms of the rebates and incentives? Is there any policy being proposed?
Yeah, I know Blair is working really closely on EV incentives, so I will let her take this.
Yes, there is. There is a great bill being proposed by Delegate Reed. I would love to have seen more of the detailed bill, but the Legislative Information Services website is very, very behind. So I know what my understanding of it is, but I'm going to say stuff that I could be proven wrong tomorrow if the bill gets posted. So please don't hold me accountable if I become a liar accidentally. But it is designed very equitably. Not only is there an enhanced rebate for LMI communities, 55% of the funding for the program is reserved for those communities. It's available. What's being proposed is that it would be available for both used and new EVs. It's really important to have that used component in there, because LMI communities are generally buying more used vehicles, but we still do need to incentivize new vehicles to support that used market. So that's why you still see financing for non-LMI communities, financing for new vehicles. It's to create a more robust market, and also helps get at what Kim mentioned earlier about sending policy signals to manufacturers that they should be sending their EVs here. And ZEV is one lever, and it's a fantastic lever, and EV rebates is sort of the other partner lever to that cause. And you know, we won't get non-equitable policy passed. That's not, Kim and I are not going to put our names or our effort on policies that are not designed with fence line and frontline communities at heart. So I can guarantee that if we're advocating for it, we're making sure that it is up to snuff.
Thank you, Blair. I actually have a follow-up question to what you were saying. I have a question in general. Can you speak to how long it might take for electric vehicles to enter the used market where they become a little bit more affordable?
Sure. And this isn't just an EV thing. This is just standard automotive things. The majority of the used market that you're going to be most interested in is cars coming off of leases. So those are generally between 1 and 3 years. There's definitely vehicles that people flip at the 7 to 8 year mark. That's because on average, cars are flipped between 8 and 12 years. So you start seeing those early end options. But really, like certified pre-owned, which I will highly recommend, you still get a warranty. That car has been checked up and down. It's basically as good as a new vehicle. The tires might have a little bit more wear on them, but that's basically it. It's been scrubbed. And those are coming off of leases. So that 1 to 3 year mark is where you can get a really good deal.
Great, thank you. Okay, we have 2 questions left. Next question is there any difference between the lifespan of an EV versus a combustible engine?
Yes, there is. EVs last longer. Woo! Merry Christmas. No, not to be contrite, but there are lots of studies showing, you know, that they've put EVs just sitting on a treadmill to see how many miles they can get them to, and it's well beyond what any of us. I mean, I've driven a car to 250,000 miles, and I'd like to never pay for those maintenance bills ever again. Don't do it. I don't recommend it. Unless you're in an EV, because there are no sway bar links to replace, and you know, all the other transmission parts to an ICE vehicle that go broke at 100,000 miles, that you don't have that same in an EV. So an EV can go farther. And if anybody tries to tell you, but what about when you replace the battery? My response to that is that the battery in an EV engine, in an EV car, is the exact same as your engine in an ICE vehicle. And in any right mind, would any of you, unless you're desperately in love with that car, consider replacing your entire engine? No, you would not. It would be way more than the value of the car. And so it's really a non-starter. And so if it's a talking point that ICE advocates are trying to use to conflate one to the other in a way that it's just not even something you would ever consider. And it's also just not supported by the data.
Thank you. Okay, my last question is for Kim. Can you give us an overview of any legislation that will advance EVs in this upcoming session?
Yeah, and I will actually address kind of the clean car standards aspect. And then, like I said, Blair is working on some rebate incentives. So I'll let her speak to that. So the short answer is yes, there are standards that we can adopt, and we are pushing for this next legislative session that will send a signal that Virginians want electric vehicles, and will task manufacturers with sending a small percentage of EVs, of what they send to Virginia to be EVs. So that number starts at, I think we're looking at about 7% initially, and it will increase over time. It has a 2-year waiting period, so if passed this legislative session, fingers crossed, it will impact model year 2025 vehicles. So that is the short answer there. It doesn't impact our dealers. It's not something that takes a lot of money. It is simply a market signaler that says we want manufacturers to send electric vehicles to Virginia. So the short answer is we want to adopt LEV and ZEV standards, also known as clean car standards.
Yeah, and I would add to that, ZEV solves a market failure. Like Kim was saying, we have so many EV owners, so some of you on this call, who bought your car in another state because you couldn't find it in Virginia. And so that's Virginia losing out on that revenue and those jobs. And it's Maryland getting it. So if I'm Maryland, I'm advocating against ZEV for Virginia because I'd like to keep getting those sales. But there already is demand in Virginia. And if anybody tells you differently, they're wrong. And so really it's just about increasing access to these vehicles to help to support the demand we already have. The flip side of that is the EV rebate program, which supports demand. It supports more equitable access as well. Bringing the EVs here is fantastic. In the long-term, market economics trickle down. You'll get more used vehicles. You'll have increased access to infrastructure. It has a way of increasing equitable access to EVs. But if you combine that with a point of sale EV rebate that's equitably designed, so a rebate that drives down the price of the car on the hood incentives is what manufacturers call them, instead of the federal tax credit, which is designed to benefit folks who make the most money. An EV rebate helps drive down that price right then and there for folks who can't afford that upfront cost anyway. And it supports the communities who can benefit most from electric vehicles. So if we could get that passed, that sends a great market signal as well to these OEMs, and it addresses the other side of the EV coin. We need to increase equitable access, but then we also need to make them more reachable for so many people. So these are really complementary policies. And then in 2022, we're going to come back and talk to you guys about TCI. So just brace yourself. We have work to do.
Thank you for these great questions. I'm going to turn it back over to Lauren, and we can take a few more questions from you all.
Thank you so much for facilitating that, Stacey. Y'all had some great questions. I do want to give just a few minutes for people to raise their hands. I'll call on people to do some kind of round robin questions and maybe any testimonial statements. We only have a few minutes because I do want us to do a few closing polls so that we can reflect on this information and see if we changed anybody's minds or presented new information, and then cap it off with next steps. Where do we go from here? So I'm going to start it off with Chuck, who has been waiting so patiently. Chuck, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, so yeah, just a comment on affordability and emission. So we're in year 5 of our all electric. And for the first time in my life, I got vanity plates. The vanity plates say Sun Car. The reason they say Sun Car is because our car is powered totally off the roof of our house.
Nice.
We put on solar panels at the same time as we bought the car. Now people said, well, that's expensive. But I have found that we have recovered the cost of our solar panels in 3 years because we're saving $7,000 a year in gasoline and maintenance that we were spending on our Volvo wagon. The other thing people said to us was, oh, well, aren't you cool? You're driving an electric car with dirty electricity.
Oh,
no. And I said, nope, it's not dirty electricity because the sun is not dirty. And as far as resale, for the first time ever, I leased a car. And the reason we leased the car was that, you know, this technology turns over like every 18 months. So every 2 to 3 years, we get brand new technology, and we've had no devaluation of the car because we didn't own it.
Don't know how to do this.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
I would just add to that, even if you don't have solar, by the way, everyone go solar whenever you can, if you can, or check out Arcadia where you get offsets for your house. Even if you're charging on today's grid in Virginia, it's still a 70% reduction in emissions. So across the United States, in every single state, even Kentucky and Tennessee that are primarily charged with coal, it's still cleaner to drive electric than it is to drive gasoline. And that's because you lose 50% of your energy in an ICE vehicle simply due to heat. So it's incredibly inefficient. And so you're just burning more and more and more than you would from, say, natural gas or nuclear, which are the primary grid sources here in Virginia. But combining that with solar, like Chuck said, takes you all the way to 100%. And so, you know, that really is the creme de la creme of options.
Yeah, and I will just piggyback off that and say that one thing that Chuck highlights is that solar panels help the individuals, but here in Virginia, we are well on our way to modernizing our grid and making sure that our grid is sourced by renewable energies. So as our grid becomes cleaner, our electric vehicles, if you own one, will also become cleaner. So it just shows you how much all of these policies and all of these components reinforce one another.
Yay for the Virginia Clean Economy Act.
Ooh, thank you so much for that, Chuck. That was great. We have time for 2 more. We're going to go to Diane, and then we're going to go to CMB 4761. Hit it, Diane. Oh, go ahead and unmute yourself. Still muted. There
Yes.
we go.
I'm about 20 minutes south of Charlottesville, so I'm interested in buying and having serviced an electric vehicle in Charlottesville. Any firsthand experience about that? And the second part is, if I can squeak this in, is besides being around here, I'm sure it would work for us locally. We travel up to New England, so the idea of taking a trip and planning a trip.
So I live in Charlottesville and I have my electric vehicle and I get it serviced in Charlottesville. If you buy an EV from a dealership, it has to be certified to maintain that vehicle. So that's a really good way of guaranteeing that. The maintenance is really, really, really minor, but you still do want to have the tires rotated, you know, have your brakes checked. So there are still those good things. Every year you have to get a state inspection in Virginia. So it's still good to check with your local dealerships and make sure that they can service them. If you're not that far from Charlottesville, you really won't have many problems. In particular, Carter Myers Automotive here in town is an EV leader. They have solar on the roofs. CMA, Carter Myers Automotive. They are great. Pete and Liza are the owners, and they are truly fantastic and are EV leaders in the space. The second question was, traveling. Okay, one, if you guys travel that much, check out a plug-in hybrid. Best of both worlds. The majority of your daily driving is still electric, but you still have the convenience of gasoline vehicles. I will say that, you know, renting a car is really easy though. So if you want to go all electric, it's really easy to rent a car for a trip. And the charging infrastructure, just look at the plug-in look at the Plugstar maps and see all the chargers on your route and just see what the infrastructure is like now and know that it's getting better every single day. Virginia has tripled our access to DC fast chargers in just the last year. So it really is a network that's expanding, especially on travel corridors like 95.
Yeah, and one of the benefits of doing a lot of these events related to electric vehicles and clean car standards is that we've heard a bunch of great stories about people traveling in their electric vehicles, which include stories about people charging at the grocery store, which includes stories about a Wawa in Fairfax County that is only equipped with fast chargers. And a lot of places, especially in Northern Virginia, have increased access to charging. So I think for folks who are looking to take long trips, the infrastructure is there. You may have to, like Blair said, plan it out a little bit, but definitely would encourage folks to think about just pulling up a map of EV chargers, and you'll realize that there are a lot more available than people may think.
Yeah, and Google and Apple Maps now have EV chargers built into their maps. So that's a new, yeah, they're now included. You can look up EV chargers on your Apple or Apple or Google Maps.
Thanks so much, guys. That was great information that I'm going to go check out very soon. CMB 4761, bring us home, and then guys, stay with us for the last 2 minutes. We still got some important reminders. Oh, you got to unmute. Sorry, you muted. Yep. There you go.
My question would be, if you're not even considering the incentives, which of the EVs are the top that you would recommend? If we're new at this and we're thinking of purchasing one.
Okay, if money isn't an option, I
but
will recommend. Okay.
We're not. It can't be totally extravagant.
The Model 3 is probably one of the best EVs out there, but the Bolt is the best bang for your buck. The Chevy Bolt. It is the most cost efficient with the farthest range. So, and really do check out used options on Carvana. My coworker got his delivered, his e-Golf just slid into his driveway and it was easy as pie. So I'd highly recommend those options too.
This has been a great informative presentation. All you guys who organized it, it's just like it's the first Zoom we've been on where it just goes tick, 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 and we kept interested. Thank you.
My heart.
God, I know, you just made my day.
My heart.
Such a day. Like, that's amazing. Thank you, sir.
Okay, give us the last minute and a half. Hang in there with us, guys. Okay, as Elle likes to say, everything worth doing is worth reviewing. Did I get it right? Recapping? Worth
evaluating.
Evaluating. There we go. Okay, guys, you know I love a poll by now. Here we go. Easy softball question, y'all. Do you feel more informed about EVs? Not to guilt trip you, but give it. No, I'm just kidding. Answer honestly. We only have 4 of these. Hang in there. And they're gonna be so helpful. Okay, gonna go ahead and end it. And we got 85% said yes, and 15% said somewhat. No one said no. Thank you. We're so happy that, yeah, well, we'll 100% take it. Okay, next one. Are you more interested in purchasing an EV now? Yes, no, somewhat. No wrong answer.
Yeah, we 1000% recognize that an EV isn't necessarily for every single person at this exact moment. And we just hope that you'll consider it for your car when you can go electric. Yeah, and hopefully we make it easier for you to do so.
Perfect. So 70% said yes, I'm more interested now. So panelists, you nailed it. 25% said somewhat. We'll take that too. And no, that is all right. Maybe you're the one buying a scooter. Okay, number 8. What barriers do you still feel prevent you from making your next car an EV? So we tried to address them. We gave you a lot of new information, but help us, tell us, you know, this is still a concern so that we can do more research. We can find more good facts to help with those concerns. And these are the same ones from the beginning, so we can kind of compare apples to apples. I'm looking for about 20 votes. I'm almost there. And then last one next. Thank y'all for giving us a few extra minutes. We really, really appreciate it. All right, ending right there. Okay, still people own an already paid off vehicle, great problem to have. Still have cost concerns, totally understandable. Car is a big purchase no matter what it is. And charging infrastructure, great, that's good to know. We will take that back. And then this is the last one, y'all. Very important, this transitions us into next steps. If you were one of the people that at the beginning said, yes, I'm a ZEV or a LEV owner, are you willing to help us get more people to be ZEV and LEV owners? This is multiple choice. You can choose more than one. Let us know. Elle put our emails. Is it working? No one's voting. Oh, there we go.
There it is.
I freaked out. Elle put our emails in the chat. If you didn't get a chance to ask a question, if you didn't get a chance to share your testimonial or where you charge or where you got your car or how much you love your car, please email me and Elle. We're looking for ways this upcoming legislative session to communicate with legislators about how we can get more ZEVs and LEVs into Virginia, and we need y'all, the owners of these vehicles, to show us your cars, show us how much you love them, show us you plugging it into a charger, something that's creative, COVID safe, that we can send as an invitation to legislators to say, hey, we'll ask this great local EV owner to come to your district office because they're local and open up their front door and let you take a peek. So please email us and let us know if you are available or would like to do any of those things. We got 63% that said yes, you would love to help provide that. 25% said that you'd be happy to roll out into your driveway in your pajamas and take a quick video clip, which we love. We'll tell you how to do that. We'll email you instructions. And 50% said you take a selfie. Everybody knows how to take a selfie.
Extra points if you put your puppies in the selfie with your electric vehicles.
Puppies, kittens, babies, anything cute. Yeah.
So those are just some of the next steps. I'm also going to go ahead and drop in the chat really quickly. Take the pledge. Gen 180 has a great pledge that I'm going to drop in for how to electrify your ride. Take that pledge. It shows us that Virginians are committed to this. And then also watch out on January the 14th. CCAN will be doing a lobbying training to help advocates like yourself get prepared to advocate for this type of great legislation in the upcoming session. We'll do a much deeper dive on how you can help. This was kind of the tail end of our great info session tonight. So we kept you so long. I'm so sorry. So I'm not going to give too much time to everybody else, but I just want to say thank you so much to our great panelists, Kim Jemaine and Blair St. Ledger-Olson, for being our experts. And Blair has been doing every event that anyone invites her to for this. So we're so thankful for doing another one.
Hanging in there, y'all. I got rental in the
Stacey for being able to facilitate anything on a dime. Elle for everything she did to work on this, putting this event together. We're so thankful that y'all gave us your evening. Please email us. Let's not stop the conversation here, and let us know what other information we can get you and how we can keep partnering. Thank you so much, and we'll see you at our next event.